Madam, kindly proceed the session, please.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon to one and all. I, Samiksha Sharma, extend my welcome to all of you to this last session of the virtual FTP on teaching, learning, and research perspectives in higher education institutions. In the last session of this FTP, we have among us Dr. Desmond Onyemechi Okocho from Nigeria. He is presently working as a senior lecturer and coordinator of postgraduate program, Department of Mass Communication, Bingham University, Nigeria. Dr. Okacha has published many research papers in various international journals of repute. He has attended many seminars and conferences and also presented his papers at various national and international conferences. His area of research includes cybernet and robot journalism, mass communication theories and models, communication research methods, organizational communication, media management, development communication, print journalism, public relations, advertising, integrated marketing communication, and creativity and visual thinking. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. And now I request Dean School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Mr. Munish Thakur, to virtually felicitate our resource person, Dr. Desmond Okocha.
Very good afternoon, sir. We are very honored to have you in our 2 weeks FDP session. So we are very thankful to you that you have accepted our invitation of this FDP. And on behalf of whole IC family, have to heartily welcome our concluding session of this 2 week FDP. So thank you so much, sir. Again, as a token of respect, to you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And over to Samiksha, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Before we proceed, an important information for all the participants. Link for attendance will be shared in the chat box. You can put your queries in the chat box as we will have a discussion session after the talk. Dr. Desmond Okocho will deliver his talk on the topic Effective Corporate Communication and Workplace Productivity, the Connectivity. Now I request our speaker, Dr. Desmond, to proceed for the session. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, once again, it's my pleasure to be connected with IEC University, India. India happened to be my second home, and that's where I got my master's, my MA in journalism and mass communication, also my doctorate. And then I did some work in India. And most of my research stands at the interchange of India, Nigeria, and Ghana. So this afternoon, I'll be presenting and making a presentation on effective corporate communication and workplace productivity, the connectivity. So you permit me to share my slides so that we can follow as we progress. So let me quickly share the slides. Okay, so that is on the screen now, which is effective corporate communication and workplace productivity, the connectivity. So first of all, we need to understand that India as a nation is a multicultural society. It's a society with hundreds of cultures, hundreds, if not thousands of languages, a country of over 1 billion people. So when you look at the university environment, you look at the classroom is a reflection of the society. And for you to be an effective communicator, an effective teacher, an effective tutor, you need to understand the dynamics of the environment, the society, the nation, which is reflected in the classroom. So we'll start by looking at culture and social cognition. This has to do with how we interpret the actions of others, the casual attributions we make, because you need to understand this, that when you meet people, you meet them with the baggage of your personal configuration, the baggage of your being, the baggage of your experience. And many times we judge people, we relate with people, we score people, we grade people, and then we package them within the configuration of our being. But if you must be effective in cross-cultural communication, then you need to come out from yourself to embrace the existence of others within their own environment. So this is why we say, when we talk about social cognition, is the ability of an individual to appreciate, to understand, to rightly interpret the actions of others, not merely from their own personal perspective or from the perspective of the actors. Basically, the cultural differences in this area refers to proneness to make dispositional versus situational attribution of others' behavior. And this is a problem that we have. And I think sometimes you're in a classroom, you are teaching in a university in Japan, and you have a class who has come from Bangalore, from Hyderabad, or from Ariana in your classroom, and probably it's not from the same religion, it's not from the same culture, it's not from the same language, and then its orientation as to what is respect, what is aggression, what is acceptance differs. Therefore, because of this lack of understanding, it's going to affect how you relate with the student. So that's very important. And then we're going to quickly define some words or terms to enable us to understand the importance of communication in the context of teaching, in the context of interaction with your colleagues, in the context of a multi-pluralistic or a multicultural environment. Number one, what is message? Message is basically information and meaning exchange during communication. Each time you meet someone or you have to send a mail, you are interacting with people, that exchange is done through the instrumentality of message. Number two is encoding. This is the process by which people select, embed messages in signals and send signals to others. But then what is a signal? These are specific verbal language or nonverbal behaviors that are encoded when messages are sent. And you do this through a channel. And these are sensory modalities by which signals sent and messages retrieved. And then when a message gets to you from your superior, from your colleagues, from a student, from the management, you need to decode the message so you can understand the message and then give the expected feedback. So decoding is a process by which people receive signal from encoded and translate those signals to meaningful messages. So having said that, the next thing we need to look at is we need to understand that India as a nation is a multicultural environment. Therefore, on daily basis, as teachers, as academics, you are involved in intercultural communication. So unlike intracultural communication, where you communicate with people from your own culture, your own environment, where message senders and receivers share the same ground rules, intercultural communication is associated with a host of additional social and psychological issues. And what are these issues? Number one is uncertainty. To start with, there is uncertainty or ambiguity concerning the ground rules by which the transaction and interaction should occur. If somebody from Ariana is to communicate with somebody from Goa, somebody from UP meet somebody from a MP, or then you have a student or a colleague or a management, you go for a conference, there's going to be uncertainty, especially if that happens to be the first time you are interacting with that person from a different society or from a different culture. Given the pervasive influence of culture, it's always difficult to figure out the rules being employed by two people from different cultures. And this uncertainty is inherent in verbal as well as non-verbal communication in both encoding and decoding moods. Because the person who starts the conversation, how should he start it? What should he say? What shouldn't he say? What kind of gestures? What kind of proximity will be accepted and will not be accepted? And even when the message is sent to you, encoded to you, how do you decode and how do you give feedback? That's important. So going forward, as far as uncertainty is concerned, how can we package messages into precise words to convey our thoughts as accurately as possible? And how can we interpret the sender's message exactly as intended? Uncertainty can easily mount to the point of utter miscommunication. Hence, uncertainty reduction is the initial major goal of intercultural communication. When I was in India, it was a wonderful place for me. And I was living in Rajasthan. I stayed in Churu, I was in Jaipur, and then I went to other parts of the country. And it was beautiful. The first thing that people did when I got to places was to see how to reduce your uncertainty, what we call uncertainty reduction, so that we can be able to discuss, we can be able to have an engagement. And the same thing with your wonderful university, which is one of the best universities in your state. You have students coming from different parts of the country and even some coming from outside the country. There must be deliberate efforts for uncertainty reduction. Next is, unless uncertainty is reduced, it's impossible for senders and receivers to begin proceeding the intended message content. And you cannot process that message content except that is done. The next issue is conflict. Once we engage in intercultural communication, some conflict and misunderstanding is inevitable. How should a man relate with a woman? What are the cultural norms and values of how to talk to a younger person, talk to your mate, talk to a senior? And you know, in the university, people of different age categories are found both in the workforce and also in the classroom. And there's bound to be conflict. So conflict arises when people's behavior does not conform to our expectations. We tend to interpret such behaviors as transgressions against our values, as rebellion against our value, as abnormal against our value. Of course, uncertainty can contribute to this conflict. Then another point that we need to take note of in communication, especially in our multicultural environment, is the issue of context. As we have said earlier, context has to do primarily with how communication takes place when cultures vary in context orientation. And there are several possible combinations. There could be high context with high context, low context with high context, low context with low context. I'm going to explain them as we move on. But the context of intercultural communication also includes several other dimensions of cultural variability. Individualism and collectivism. India is a nation of collectivism. America is a nation of individualism. So we need to know how to balance the issues of individualism and collectivism when we meet people. There are people you will meet, they like to be alone, work alone. There are places you go, like to work as a team, want to be together. And number two is power distance. In India, there is not much of power distance. You see a very rich man, successful man, a big guru who is even dining, playing, and a friend to even the common man on the streets. And that is the uniqueness of the Indian society. There are places you will go and there's a big demarcation between the powerful and the powerless. And you must recognize this in communication. Next is uncertainty avoidance. And that is why some people do not want to avoid uncertainty. They want to pronounce it, they want to enforce it, they want to promote it. And then the issue of masculinity and femininity. There are some places that you see the men dominate, other places the women dominate. So you must recognize these differences if you must have effective communication. The next thing we want to look at as we progress in this discussion or conversation is cultural influences on nonverbal communication. But then, what do we mean when we say nonverbal behaviors? This refers to all behaviors that occur during communication that do not include verbal language. The things we do beyond speaking. Someone can look at you, can give you a gesture, someone can keep a distance from you, and all these are part of communication. So as a teacher in the classroom, hypothetically speaking, when you see a child crying, a child keeping to him or herself, a child refusing to do assignments, a child refusing to obey instruction, these are non-verbal communication. And then non-verbal channels are more important in understanding meaning and emotional states of speakers than verbal language. And now that we've gone digital, we've gone virtual, now that we're using what we call the remote classroom, you're doing your lectures online, it becomes very much difficult for you to ascertain the non-verbal communication traits or presence in the conversation. So it's important for you to go extra mile to look out for this when you are having your classes online or communing with someone from a distance. It's imperative to be more attentive to nonverbal clues that occur in communication. And what are the types of nonverbal behaviors? Number one is culture and gesture. Culture and gestures. We're going to give you some examples. The American OK sign is an obscene gestures in many countries of Europe. In America, somebody can put the thumb up, thumb up, you put thumb like this, oh, okay. Some other places that could mean an insult. That could mean like some very vulgar expression. And so you have to understand that so that as you watch American movies, you read American books, you read their novels, you don't just borrow terminologies and expressions and you want to put your finger up to somebody to say, okay, when that could mean something different within your culture or even within different age groups. The issue of culture and gaze. Contact cultures engage in more gazing and more direct orientation when interacting with others. There are certain culture places where when you're talking to someone, you have to look at the person and look into his eyes. While in some other culture, that could mean insult. In my culture, it is said that when an elder is talking to you, you got to look down. You don't look at the elder eyeball to eyeball. That's insulting. While in some other culture, when you don't look at the person eyeball to eyeball, it means you are not honest. There's something you are concealing and you're telling a lie. So we must understand this as we communicate. If not, we're going to have problems. Another issue is culture and interpersonal space. Arabs and Latin Americans interact with others at closer distance than Americans. In India, you can be so close to people. In some other place, when you're talking to them, you have to create a distance. So what we're saying is what effective corporate communication and workplace productivity, productivity in the classroom, productivity interaction with your colleagues, productivity interaction with your superiors, even productivity in connecting and interacting with society. Because once you are working at a place, you have become the ambassador of the organization to the outside world, because wherever you go, you keep telling people that you are working in so and so place. So your communication, even outside the organization, is equally important. So having said that, what are the functions of non-verbal behaviors? The functions of non-verbal behaviors in communication. Always keep in mind that non-verbal behaviors serve as emblems, speech illustrators, conversation regulators, and convey emotions. Even the tone of a voice, the facial expression conveys emblems, speech illustrations, conversation regulation, and equally convey emotion. So you must be very careful about that. The next thing is intracultural and intercultural communication. What do we mean? Cultural influences on encoding. Cultures differ in how nonverbal behavior is used in communication. And I want to encourage us, because many times we intend to borrow culture. When you want to bring in, say, the American culture, the European culture into your classroom, you must be able to understand where those cultures are at variance with your own culture or with your societal culture and cultural norms, so you do not cause conflict, uncertainty, and problem. In the Indian culture, there are defined rules and guides of how to relate with the opposite sex, how to relate with the elderly ones, how to relate even with the same gender at different age level, at different societal status. So you must learn all that so that you can communicate effectively. And also, you know that cultural influences abound on decoding. When someone talks to you, the way you understand that message is equally influenced by your own culture. Cultures influence decoding process through what? Ethnocentrism, cultural filters, emotions, value judgments, stereotypes, and expectations. But then what are the decoding rules? You must be very careful when you are communicating. Many of us, with all our degrees, with all our certificates, if we do not imbibe emotional intelligence, which one aspect is social awareness, we're going to have a problem. You can be the most educated, but without emotional intelligence in the aspect of social awareness, which will help you, your corporate communication, you are going to have problems. So intracultural communication is communication between people of the same cultural background. You and your parents, you and your siblings, you and people from your community, your society, you and people from the same tribe. So interants, communicators or communicants share same ground rules. They encode and decode using the same cultural codes. Can be negative because of expectations created by cultural filters and ethnocentrism. We tend to read more than is intended when we are communicating from the intracultural perspective. when we are communicating from the intrapersonal perspective and angle. Then we should know that communicants do not share same rules if it is intercultural communication, because intercultural communication is communication between people of different cultural backgrounds. Therefore, these communicators do not share same ground rules. They encode and decode using different cultural codes. And these can lead to what? Uncertainty and ambiguity. It could equally lead to conflict. Another point to note as we make progress, because the essence of this series that has been organized by your management is to make you more effective in your teaching, make you more effective as a staff, make you more effective as a member of the university community and the society, is to develop you so you can be more productive. So we need to ask ourselves, what are the barriers to effective intercultural communication? What are the barriers? What are the hindrances, the obstructions, the militating factors that abound that we need to scale through? We need to see how to uproot them. Number one is assumptions of similarities. You feel he is educated, he has gone to school, he has a degree, she has a certificate, she has a diploma, then she has to understand. And that is not the point. Do not assume. When you have assumption or assumptions, it's going to be a problem. So that is one barrier, assumptions of similarities. Number two is language differences. If I speak to you in Urdu or Mawari or Hindi or in Punjabi, they are different languages. And because they are different languages, it's going to affect or become a barrier to the effectiveness of the communication. Next is nonverbal misinterpretations. If I'm talking to you and I raise my hands up, or I spread out my hands, or I go far from you, or I come close to you, the way I position my leg, if I cross my leg, if I stretch out my leg, these are all expressions that are nonverbal, and they can, in a way, become a barrier if not well interpreted. Next is preconceptions and stereotypes. Sometimes you have not met a person, or because of the soap operas, television series, music, movies that you have watched about the Punjabi, about the people from different parts of the world, different part of the society, you have built a stereotype in your mind, an illusion, an imagination. You have created a conclusion within you about certain people that can affect how you relate with them. Then tendency to evaluate. Sometimes we tend to be a bit judgmental, and that could affect the effectiveness of our communication. High anxiety or tension. When we're also worried, how will she take the message? How will she understand it? Will she receive it? Will he receive it? Is he happy? Am I welcome? When you are unsettled mentally, psychologically, emotionally, that will affect your communication, and that as it becomes a barrier. The next point is to know that there are a lot of materials that have been put for us that you can actually go through to read more about barriers to intercultural communication. So that was where the source came from. So we go on to look at these barriers in more detail. We look at number one, assumptions of similarities. So we need to keep in mind that communication is a uniquely human trait shaped by culture. Amongst all creatures, humans are the most advanced in communication, and communication is shaped by culture. In fact, communication itself is a product of culture, and cultures vary in their assumptions of similarities. Next is language differences. The use of words which may be highly effective at conveying meanings within a particular culture often communicate unintended meanings across cultures. Even in India, when you pick the Gita, or you pick any of the ancient scripts like Sanskrit, and you want to translate that direct to Hindi, there's going to be some differences, and that could distort the meaning. If you pick Urdu, so we're saying that language could communicate effectively within certain culture when you transpose and transport that same language into a different culture, the society, or you want to translate into a different language, you're going to have problem. Because sometimes there is no similar word, there's no equivalent in another language, and you begin to struggle. Or sometimes in the process of translation, you get the word distorted. So add to these the nonverbal channel of communication, and you have a recipe for conflict and misunderstanding. Another point is nonverbal misinterpretations. This is the single most frequent cause of breakdowns in the communication process across culture. Nonverbal misinterpretation, when we do not know the reason for the gestures and bodily actions of others, we can misinterpret that. And I spoke of preconceptions and stereotypes. These are natural and inevitable psychological processes that have a strong influence on our perceptions and communication. And for each of us, we all have our biases. We have to sit down and discover what our biases are and see ways of addressing them. See ways of addressing our own biases. Until we have adequately and effectively addressed or minimized our biases, we will not be competent to address the biases of others. The next is tendency to evaluate. We make attributions, judgment, conclusions about the behavior of others based on our own cultural values. She is beautiful, he is handsome, he is outspoken, he is this, he is that. It is because of our own cultural values. The next is the high anxiety of tension. High anxiety of tension. While some degrees of anxiety may be conducive to optimal performance, we'll say some measure of conflict will prompt you to be effective. Too much anxiety or stress can lead to dysfunctional thought processes and behavior. So we must make sure we do not allow too much stress to come in when we want to communicate. The next is how do we improve intercultural communication? Before we close the discussion, how do we improve intercultural communication? Number one, meaningful and uncertainty reduction. Meaningful and uncertainty reduction. We need to have a meaningful offsets uncertainty and anxiety as we communicate. Uncertainty reduction leads to focus on the content of signals and messages. Then our face should be mindful. We should be mindful of face, public appearance of person in collectivist culture. In Indian society, where it is a collectivism structured society, we should be careful and deliberate to observe the appearance of people, because they could give us some clues that will help us in our communication. Then emotional or emotion regulation, controlling negative emotions aroused from conflict is important. When you are communicating, you should ensure that you keep your emotion under check, especially when the emotion is negative. So having said this, I need to quickly let us understand that communication is very important, and how well and how good we are able to communicate will determine how effective we are going to be as teachers, as communicators, and as members of society. Let's go back and sit down and look at ourselves and ask ourselves, how well have we been communicating all this while, and see how we can adjust our communication style, learn new ways of communicating to reduce the problems that we have encountered over the years in our communication. That would be very, very important for us. So, as teachers, I believe we've learned new things that will help us in our communication. I believe we've learned new ways of how to do communication from the way that we have been doing communication. And I believe with this, we'll become more effective as we do our communication. So having said this, I'm going to wrap up by bringing just some few things to our notice. And that is basically how you can achieve, what are some of the ways in which you can train yourself to be more effective in communication. You can look at for someone in your team, in your organization, who is better in communicating to coach you. You could equally have someone to counsel you. If there's an area you think you have a problem in communicating, you can reach out to a counselor, probably a superior or a colleague. You can also do through facilitating by getting someone who will give you some tutorials. Like, for example, we've had in this training, you can have that also being done for you. So this, you can also source out for more information online. You can read, you can watch videos on issues on communication. You can also play what we call the devil's advocate, where you ask questions to say, okay, if it goes this way, if it acts like this, if these are the problems, how should they be solved? And there are some of the ways that you'll be able to remedy some of your deficiency when it comes to corporate communication. You can equally provide encouragement for those within your organization that are effective in their communication, and also goal identification. Each time you want to communicate, what is the goal? There must be a goal in mind. There must be a purpose that you have in mind. And if there's a purpose, then you'll be more effective. When you communicate without a purpose, it will reduce your effectiveness. So we want to appeal to us that as we learn to communicate, we must always have a purpose, because the purpose will drive you, the purpose will guide you, the purpose will ensure that whatever you are doing, you will do it rightly. So as I bring the session to a close, I'm going to quickly mention 8 things that can affect our productivity. Then I'll give us the factors that can contribute to our productivity, and we close the session. So number 1 thing that can is when you as a person, you do not take inventory of yourself to know your weaknesses and your strength in communication. Number 2 is when the system does not encourage effective communication. Number 3 is when the management does not take the lead in communication effectively. And next is when there is no feedback cycle. We communicate, there is no feedback. Also, when there's no appreciation and commendation of those who are communicating effectively. Also, when there's no reprimanding and punishment and rebuke of those who are communicating ineffectively. And then another thing that could also impede us is lack of appreciation of our uniqueness, our identity, and our cultural diversity. We must equally appreciate all these things. So these are some of the problems that could lead to ineffectiveness in our corporate communication. Then going forward, what are some of the things that we must always take note of for us to communicate effectively. Number one is the environmental impact. Let's be conscious of our environment. As teachers in the classroom, be conscious. Within the campus, be conscious. Next also is, let's look at our various skills. Let's appreciate one another. You look at where someone is good, you appreciate him. Where you can also support, you support. And then let's also create positive energy in the system. Create positive energy within your system. Discover your colleague that needs support, new staff that just come in after orientation, they've just joined the system, make them feel at home. Also, when you have issues of concern in communication, there's nothing wrong in approaching your superior management and saying, sir, I have this problem here, and I believe they'll be willing and ready to support you. Let's learn to read more. Let's equally travel more, what we call inbound tourism. Indians love to travel. Let's travel within our states, within the country, so that we can learn more about the culture of others. And that will help us in how we relate more with others. Let us organize more of this program. Let us also give room for more interdepartmental engagements as we interact more with ourselves. Also, let's learn to give ourselves feedback as we communicate. These actions will help us in building effective communication. So I want to wrap up with this by saying the future of society is hinged on effective communication. The problems of the world, the problems of nations, society, of homes are all traceable to lack of effective communication. When we learn to communicate effectively, more than half of our problems will be solved. So I welcome all of us to a paradigm shift in our communication. And I wish our university and our individual person success going forward as we go out to enact, to imbibe, and to act on the skills and ideas and knowledge that will be shared during the course of this training. Thank you very much as I bring the discussion to an end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights. It was an informative session. It is rightly said that time flies, as today we have reached the summit of this 2-week online FTP on teaching, learning, and research perspectives in higher education institutions. It was indeed a great learning experience for all of us. Now I would like to introduce our chief guest for the valedictory session, Dr. Amna Mirza, who is currently working as an assistant professor of political studies at SPM College, University of Delhi. Dr. Amna Mirza has 7 books to her credit, which were well received by academia and media. She has also published 20 research papers in peer-reviewed journals and has participated in more than 100 conferences at national and international level for paper presentations and as a resource person. She is the recipient of Godfrey Phillips Golden Ovary Award, Bharat Nirman Award for Women Entrepreneurship, Mook Nayak National Award, and Business Rankers Women Achievement Award. Now, I request our worthy Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Randeep Singh, to welcome and present a virtual bouquet to our chief guest, Dr. Amna Mirza.
It is a matter of great pride for all of us that a person like you, full of energy and charisma, had spread time for all of us. We would like to thank you for your worthy presence at our valedictory session. We really appreciate you taking out time for us from your busy schedule. I feel pride to apprise the House that Dr. Mirza has dedicated most of her time in the service of community, and a large chunk of her work focuses on to enhance the well-being of the community and the society. And Madam has been awarded for working on ground level. I salute your contribution in wide spectrum of pupils' life. We really feel pride and gratitude to have such an eminent personality with us today. I feel pleasure and privilege to welcome you, ma'am. On behalf of IC University family, I present a virtual bouquet to you, ma'am. Please accept it.
Thank you. Abhar. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the felicitation. Now I request a worthy chief guest, Dr. Amna Mirza, to kindly proceed for her address. Over to you, ma'am.
A very good afternoon. Namaskar, each and all. My greetings to everyone. It is indeed a matter of great honor and privilege for me to be here for the valedictory session of the 2-week online faculty development program organized by IEC University, Himachal Pradesh. My gratitude to respected Naveen Gupta sir, respected Dr. Jitendra Singh sir, respected Professor Randeep sir, Abhay sir, Vijay Thakur sir, Dr. Ashish Sharma ji, gratitude. Thank you for having me. It is indeed a matter of great honor for me to be here. Now, as we are speaking at the end of a very significant 2-week online faculty development program focusing on teaching, learning, and research practices in higher education institutions, it's also very important to reflect. Now, as I reflect on the very significant schedule that was sent by Dr. Ashish Sharma ji, it is indeed very interesting to learn as well as to know that how there has been a focus towards interdisciplinarity. That is, we all have to learn from each other. Dear respected participants, we are living in very interesting times. Why I call it interesting? Because we are living in a time where education and the horizons of knowledge are being redefined every time. हम समय के उस पृष्ठभूमि में हैं इस समय जहां सीखने, अध्ययन व पढ़ाने का दायरा जो है वो हर समय एक बदलाव की ओर जा रहा है और टीचिंग कम्युनिटी के लिए, रिसर्च फैकल्टी फ्रेटर्निटी के लिए ये एक बहुत ही फिर दिलचस्प मोड़ की ओर जाता है. It then turns towards a very interesting phase because there is so much to learn, unlearn, as well as relearn. So we are living at a time wherein we not only have to open up horizons of our education, but at the same time, we have to be reflective with respect to each other's knowledge and learning also in order to validate as to what is the authenticity, what is the validity of our own self-learning. हेनरी ब्रुक एडम्स का एक बहुत सुंदर कथन है जो मैं आपके बीच साझा करना चाहती हूँ. हेनरी ब्रुक्स एडम्स वेरी फेमस सेइंग, टीचिंग अफेक्ट्स एटर्निटी. और आज कहीं ना कहीं इस बदलते हुए समय में आज हम देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह से टीचिंग प्रैक्टिसेस जो हैं एक व्यक्ति के जीवन में बहुत ही ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करती है. And why I say it with all confidence, because I do a lot of work in the discipline of international relations, global governance. Today, education is a very important part of development of human resources. And this human resources for any country has a bearing with respect to the soft power of the country. Now, seen in this regard, faculty development programs like this, where we have an interdisciplinary perspective, where we learn from focusing on a research paper to focusing on issues like cyber security and to look at various dimensions of law, sociology, amongst others, it's indeed then a very important occasion not only to expand and increase our horizons of knowledge, but at the same time, have a check, have a reflection with respect to the significant role the teaching community of the country, the teaching community of the nation has to play with respect to the development, the concept of welfare, amongst others. Mahatma Gandhi ji very famously and very importantly and rightly pointed out that learn as if you were to live forever. आज जरूरी ये है कि विकास के स्तर को आगे बढ़ाते हुए, शिक्षा के नए आयामों को समझते हुए, आज इसी भाव को, बापू के इन्हीं विचारों को, टीचिंग फ्रेटर्निटी को, रिसर्च फ्रेटर्निटी को व टीचिंग से जुड़े हुए सभी अध्ययन क्षेत्रों को, इसी भाव को डेली उजागर करना है और इसके साथ हमें जीना है. That we have to understand that today the domain of education is witnessing new challenges. Now this new domain of education where we have the impact of technology, where we have new realms, where we have the ambit of open education resources, amidst all this, wherein our frontiers of learnings are also being redefined each day, we have to commit ourselves to ensure that the right perspective proceeds forward. क्योंकि जीवन में बापू के लिए, आदरणीय राष्ट्रपिता महात्मा गांधी जी के लिए सत्य बहुत जरूरी था और सत्य वो है जिसकी हम खोज करते हैं. तो शिक्षा का ये जो दायरा है जहां हम सत्य की खोज में आगे निकलते हैं, आज इसका जो पैमाना है वो बहुत बढ़ गया है और हम सब के लिए एक दायित्व है कि इस मंथन में हम सब अपना योगदान दें. मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि हम सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स जो इस ऑनलाइन 2 वीक फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम में थे, आईईसी यूनिवर्सिटी द्वारा जितने भी आमंत्रित बहुत ही डिस्टिंग्विश रिसोर्स पर्सन्स थे, उनके साथ, उनके ज्ञान के साथ, उनके विचार के साथ, उनके काम के साथ हमने अच्छी चीजें सीखी और इन्हीं अच्छे ज्ञान के साथ, इन्हीं अच्छी बातों के साथ हम जीवन में सीखने को पैमाने को और विकास के पैमाने को आगे बढ़ाएंगे. बिकॉज वंस अगेन एज फादर ऑफ द नेशन Mahatma Gandhi ji also rightly said that the future depends on what you do today. Sathiyo, as we all know that we are living in times of contestations. With everything, there are positives also, but also there are disadvantages. Now here once again, it is our education, our thoughts, our ideas that will give us the resilience to translate the challenges into the realms of solutions. Swami Vivekananda ji rightly said that we are responsible for what we are. तो स्वामी विवेकानंद जी के जो विचार हैं कि जो हमारे जो भाव हैं, हमारे जो सोच है, वो हमारे अस्तित्व के लिए बहुत ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है. और इसी संदर्भ में देखते हुए ये 2 वीक ऑनलाइन फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम किसी भी टीचिंग कम्युनिटी के, किसी भी रिसर्च फ्रेटर्निटी के, एकेडमिक फ्रेटर्निटी के विकास में बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण योगदान देती है. I'm very sure that these 2 weeks of online faculty development program have indeed been very productive, very fruitful for all the stakeholders from various realms of academics, media, learning, teaching, education, amongst others. We hope, we are very confident that with all the things that we have gained, this will give us the right light to translate our perspectives, to translate our vision towards issues of positive contribution towards welfare and development. अब जब हम आज शिक्षा की बात कर रहे हैं, टीचिंग प्रैक्टिसेस एंड रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी को देख रहे हैं, तो मैं बताना चाहती हूँ कि आज अगर हम किसी भी इंडस्ट्रियल मॉडल को देखें, किसी भी आर्थिक मॉडल को देखें, तो साथियों आज हम जिस संदर्भ में, जिस पृष्ठभूमि में रह रहे हैं, उसको हम परिभाषित कर रहे हैं इंडस्ट्री 4.0, डिसरप्शन एक्सेट्रा. Now, living at a time wherein technology is constantly redefining contours of our learning, redefining our industrial models, wherein we have globalization 4.0, we have industry 4.0, and human skilling is very important. In this aspect, what Albert Einstein also said, and allow me to quote that for you, that the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but in imagination. So the onus before the teaching fraternity, before the academic fraternity then comes in, that how do we come forward with new avenues of creativity, with new rooms for imagination, with respect to our conduct in the classroom, with respect to the research that we present, with respect to our interface with the society, with the community, with the nation. क्योंकि याद रखिए कि creativity is the yardstick for future growth. आज हमें आउट ऑफ बॉक्स थिंकिंग का इस पृष्ठभूमि को लेते हुए क्रिएटिविटी को एक यार्डस्टिक बनाते हुए अपनी भूमिका को एक सक्रिय और सार्थक रूप प्रदान करता है। साथ ही मैं बताना चाहती हूँ कि जिस तरह हमें इंट्रोड्यूस करा गया that we must always, even especially with teaching fraternity, it becomes all the more important that we must always think about our duties with respect to the community at large. हमें अपने सक्रिय पक्ष के साथ साथ हमारे जो कर्तव्य हैं अपने समुदाय के प्रति, अपने समाज के प्रति, अपने देश के प्रति, और उसी से जुड़ी जो बहुत प्रमुख कड़ी है अपने विश्व के प्रति, क्योंकि जो वासुदेव कुटुंब का एक बहुत ही सुंदर विचार है जो भारतीय संस्कृति में सजा हुआ है, वर्ल्ड एज वन फैमिली, वर्ल्ड एज वन बिग कम्युनिटी. It is very essential, integral to any task that we follow, that we observe, that we must correlate our rights with our duties. So seen in this light, it is very once again significant to point out that how over a span of 2 weeks, this online faculty development program organized by IEC University, Himachal Pradesh, indeed did a Herculean task of getting the best of resource person to sensitize us time and again. Because remember, education in true sense takes place beyond the curriculum. तो आज हम सब लोगों ने जिस प्रकार से नई चीजें सीखी, नई चीजों का ज्ञान प्राप्त करा, मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि यह नवीन शिक्षा हमारे जीवन में, हमारे एकेडमिक्स के प्रति, हमारे देश के प्रति, हमारे शिक्षा के विकास के प्रति में जो हमारा योगदान है उसको बहुत ही सक्रिय, बहुत ही सक्षम रूप से रखने का, आगे रखने का हमें एक मौका देगी. Because human skilling is very important, and when it comes to teaching fraternity, these avenues of learning, these avenues of skill development, these avenues of what I began with, learning, relearning and unlearning. The challenge before the teaching and the learning fraternity right now here is to have a meticulous balance between 3 various ambits of learning, relearning and unlearning, because it is essential to be in tune with the changes of contemporary scenario. We have to understand that today the challenges that confront, for example, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about gender equality, when we talk about technology, when we talk about pandemic, all these challenges do not have one fixed solution. Rather, what is needed is that we have a multidisciplinary, multi-dimensional strategy and insight to cater to the problem at hand, and also to channelize the working of the academic fraternity towards a bigger problem solving approach towards the society and the nation. My last thing as I wrap up my remarks would be that today we have to acknowledge and accept the fact of the significance of a knowledge society. The document of the new education policy 2020 in India also emphasizes that how we have to use the changes being presented by the National Education Policy 2020 to factor in a knowledge society. And this knowledge society will form the base for the nation to be a superpower. And this aspect of a knowledge society using human resources as a frontier for expression of better power dynamics of any nation is prevalent across all nations. Today, all nations are thinking of a multifaceted approach towards security, wherein human resources are indeed going to be playing a very important role. So seen in this regard, it is indeed a matter of great congratulations for all the stakeholders, all the participants, all the resource persons involved here for the 2-week faculty development program here at IEC University. My congratulations to you all, because knowledge economy, knowledge society is invaluable resource and asset for any country. तो ज्ञान के साथ आप जीवन के दायरे को बढ़ाते रहें, शिक्षा के साथ समाज में सक्रिय भूमिका निभाते रहें. इन्हीं शुभकामनाओं के साथ मैं अपनी वाणी को विराम देती हूँ. My greetings and good wishes once again to everyone at IEC University Himachal Pradesh. Adarniya Naveen ji, respected Dr. Jitendra sir, respected Professor Randeep sir, Vijay sir, Abhay sir, Ashish ji. Thank you so much. Gratitude कि आपने मुझे मौका दिया कि आज मैं आप सब लोगों के बीच आऊं, आप लोगों से भी सीखूं और कुछ बातें अपनी भी रखूं. मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि विचारों के साथ ये जो संवाद है, ये जो मंथन है आईईसी यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ, आईईसी ग्रुप ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूशंस के साथ, वो सदा चलता रहेगा. वेरी होपफुल दैट दिस डायलॉग फॉर अ पॉजिटिव कंट्रीब्यूशन from the realm of education with respect to development of society and nation shall always continue in a much more meaningful manner. Thank you very much. खुश रहें साथियों, स्वस्थ रहें, stay safe, stay healthy, keep learning. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your address. Thank you once again for accepting our invitation to be part of this FDP. Now it's time to conclude this wonderful learning experience, which really enriched our knowledge and experience. For vote of thanks, I would like to invite our worthy registrar, Engineer Vinod Kumar. Kindly proceed, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Samiksha. I congratulate Dr. Ashish Sharma and the team, Samiksha, to organizing this 2-week faculty development program in very well manner. It was really very effective and the speakers are also very nice. Hope the audience from the outside IEC University also enjoyed the session. And I hope that there will be a good feedback from all of the participants regarding this activity. Thanks, Dr. Desmond Okocha, for the topic and the speaker of today's last topic. Thank you. I also thank the part of this. Thank you, madam. And I thanks our CEO, sir, Dr. Ajay Sinha, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Jitendra Singh, the Pro Vice Chancellor, Dr. Randeep Singh, to guide us and to facilitate us for the organizing of this FDP program. So I thank you all of you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir, for the vote of thanks. On behalf of IEC University, I extend my thanks to all the participants and resource persons for sparing their valuable time and making this FDP on teaching, learning, and research perspectives in higher education institutions a great success. And information for all the participants. Feedback form will be shared through email, and all the participants are requested to fill the form to get the e-certificate, which will be issued through mail within a week. Thank you once again for your active participation in this virtual learning.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.